Hello everybody, welcome or welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Janice and I make videos about how you can leave your country and travel abroad. I am currently based in South Korea and I am a teacher. So today's video, I will be going over some interview questions and giving you a bit of tips for the demo lesson, because that is part of the interview now. You have to do a 5-minute demo lesson. So yeah, I will be going over that. I interviewed with EPIK in 18 or 19, towards the end of 2019. So to the best of my abilities, I'm going to try and remember. I'm going to give you some questions, and I'm going to give you some examples of how I would answer these questions. Some of them I would have to rely on what I said in 2019. And then most of them actually, I asked a friend of mine that came to South Korea in February. So she was with the recent intake of spring 2022. So yeah, these questions are I would say the latest or the newest kind of questions that you can expect in the interview for the fall intake. So yeah, let me not waste any more time. Let me get right into it. So I will be looking at my notes a lot because I wrote down all of the questions, and I think I'm going to categorize them. So I'm going to start off with all the teaching questions they might ask you. Number one is, why do you want to teach with EPIK? Or why do you want to teach with EPIK? So I said, my example was, I've always enjoyed working with kids, and right before, while I was in the process of applying to be an EPIK teacher, I was an au pair. So I said that I wanted to experience working with kids in a different setting, and I was already comfortable being in a teaching environment or just working with kids. So I structured my answer around that. So and I think I also said that EPIK is a very reputable company. So that just made sense for me to go with a company that is well reputed, and that I know once I get to the country, I am safe, I am kind of protected. Yeah, so that's why I chose EPIK as opposed to a Hagwon, because you also have other options. A Hagwon is working for a private academy, but that's risky, and I will not go into detail about it. If you are considering what option is best for you, there are tons and tons of videos on YouTube that you can look up and see what would be the better fit for you. For me, it was EPIK because it's a public school, so it's run by the government. So in that sense, I would have job security. It just made more sense to me, and it had more benefits. So that's why I chose EPIK. Then they might ask you, what does EPIK stand for? And that's just the English program in Korea. The next question is, why did you choose teaching when your background is not in teaching? So I think I was asked this question in 2019 as well, and I would just say, my example, what did I say? I think I said something along the lines of, although my degree was not in teaching, after university I had a lot of experience working with kids, and I was passionate about working with children, and I really enjoyed my experience, and therefore I wanted to try working with kids in different settings because of how just rewarding that was for me. My degree, it was in human resources, and then I did a postgrad in labor relations, so it is also working with people. So I also said that through my degree I learned how to communicate, because my job required me to have good interpersonal skills. So I finessed it like that. I think the next question, which is kind of similar to number 2, is how will your degree tie in with teaching? Just finesse it like I gave an example. And then it's, what is your teaching philosophy? Oh, this one. I think you will most definitely be asked this question. And I would just say that your teaching philosophy should be one where children feel safe and what did I say? Just, okay, for me, my teaching philosophy, if you ask me now, is just create an environment that is conducive for learning. So I want children to feel confident in their abilities. I want them to know that trying their best is going to help them in the long run. I also encourage the use of technology in the classroom, because we do live in a world where we are very reliant on technology. So incorporating some technology into my classroom, making it an environment where I have good rapport with my students. So for me, it's very important to make sure that they feel safe to ask me questions, and yeah, just have that rapport with them, and make sure that they, to your best of your ability, make sure that they understand what is expected of them, anticipate some cultural differences, and just how you can weave that into the classroom to make it, yeah, more accommodating. Is that the word I'm looking for? I don't know what the word I'm looking for. Just make it an environment where, even though there is going to be a lot of cultural differences and it's going to be difficult for them to fully understand you, just making that, building connections and good rapport with your students, something along those lines. I don't know if that makes any sense, but yeah, just have a teaching philosophy. It doesn't have to be anything that I said, but have a teaching philosophy and make sure that it is something that you really do believe in. Don't just say whatever. I think I was very honest, and yeah, that goes a long way. Okay, let's see, do I have any more teaching questions? I think that's it for teaching. Okay, the next section or category is the co-teacher question. So number one, I have, what if you don't work well with your co-teacher? Here you can just say something along the lines of, your relationship with your co-teacher sets the tone for every other relationship that you'll have during your time in Korea. It's really a very important relationship, so you are going to want to prioritize this relationship, and just having a lot of respect for your co-teacher, and over communicating with your co-teacher, just to make sure that you guys are on the same page. Or teachers, you might have more than one co-teacher. So just over communicating, making sure that you are on the same page, that you speak about your expectations and what would teaching look like on a daily basis. So if you don't work well with your co-teacher, just realize that that is the most important relationship that you have. So just work on building a good relationship on your part, for the most part. And yeah, I think that's how I would phrase it. Yeah, you might have something different, and that's okay. Number two is, what if a co-teacher is repeatedly saying the wrong things to the children in terms of grammar and pronunciation? What do you do? I would say, after the class, don't embarrass the co-teacher in front of the class. I think that's very unprofessional. So I would just wait till after the class and then have a conversation about your co-teacher in like a nice way. Don't try and embarrass or humiliate them. Just say, hey, I noticed that this and this and this and this, but it should actually be this and this and this and this. And yeah, hopefully they receive it well. And then the next one, how do you feel about having a co-teacher? So I wasn't asked these questions. I was asked how, okay, that's not even important. So how would you feel about having a co-teacher? Be honest. Say that you are nervous or excited just because you know that you might be working with many co-teachers, and all of them will have different, like I said, different expectations, different things that they want. So just make sure that you communicate with them thoroughly, and just say that you are excited, that you are happy to be working with somebody that is native in the language, that is there and able to assist you. So I would be very happy, because if you have to do it all by yourself, that's a lot more challenging. So it just eases your load in the classroom and makes the lessons and the learning for the students more interactive and engaging if there is actually a native speaker there as well to help you out from time to time. So I would say thrilled. I am thrilled that I will have a co-teacher so I don't have to fend for myself. And then the next one is how will you handle disagreements with your co-teacher? I feel like that's kind of similar to the first question. If you don't work well with your co-teacher, just emphasize that that's the most important relationship you'll have in your workplace environment. So you will just make it a priority to maintain good communication and building good rapport by asking questions to make sure that there's no misunderstandings. And yeah, just knowing, going into the situation, knowing that there might be some cultural differences so that you need to be aware of. So you know, just have a little bit more respect. And yeah, I think that's how I would phrase it. We are going on to part 3, section 3, category 3, and this is Korean life. Okay, so I only have 4 questions here for you. Number 1 is, why do you want to teach in Korea? I can say definitely expect to be asked this question. Why? I said something along the lines of, I've never been to an Asian country and I didn't know anything about Korea outside of the fact that it's in war with North Korea. That was the extent of my knowledge to South Korea. And then as I was going through the process of applying, a friend of mine actually suggested that I join the EPIK program, and that's how I got introduced to Korea. So prior to that, I had no knowledge. So I just, for me, it was important to learn about this country that is so rich in history and that is so different from South Africa, or I've lived in the US, so different from the US as well. So I wanted to be in a country where the first language was not English, because I feel like that's really has helped me fully immerse into the culture. I still struggle a lot, but why Korea? For those reasons. I didn't know about K-pop, I didn't know about K-dramas, I didn't know about any of that, so I couldn't be like, because I really like K-pop or I really like K-dramas. I was just I'm a curious person. I like going out of my boundaries and stretching those borders and just seeing how I can grow in different kind of uncomfortable settings. So that's why I chose Korea. And yeah, number 2, what do you know about Korean culture and trends? Ooh, I don't even know what's trending in Korea right now. How am I going to help you answer that? I mean, just Google what is trending in Korea right now. And then Korean culture, also there's tons and tons of videos out there. I would be doing you a disservice trying to tell you about Korean culture. I'm not gonna do it, guys, sorry. The next question, how would you handle culture shock? Ooh, this is an interesting one. Well, be aware that you will experience it, so come prepared. And then I would say yeah, just do a lot of research, like learn a lot about the culture, so once you get here, you will not be bamboozled. You will not feel so overwhelmed. So if you do a lot of research, it will help with your transitioning into this culture. I guess you will also just learn to deal with it once you get here. It's not, one thing that I do might not work for you, and vice versa. So I don't know. You'll just expect the unexpected and prepare as much as you can. And then I have one more question about Korean life. What do you expect to be the most difficult part of working and living in Korea? Absolutely the language. Like, for me, still the language. Had I prepared myself a little more, just language wise, I would thrive. Not only would I have like better working relationships with my co-workers, so I can actually talk to them and build relationships with them, I also would have a good, I would be able to help the students more. because sometimes I really do rely on what their level of English, and I have to, which I've surprisingly gotten a lot better at, just understanding like whatever they have, vocab they have, I can understand what they are trying to say, thankfully. But I think if I knew more Korean, it would just, you know, to make it a little bit more easier to acclimate to the culture. And I think it's also the relationship with your co-teacher that is the most important relationship. So just, you don't know what you are going to get in terms of a co-teacher. So just that can be very difficult if you have a co-teacher that is not on board or doesn't want to work with you. But just keep being open-minded, keep being respectful, but also communicate your concerns in a respectful manner, and yeah, just keep communicating and do your best. And then I have 2 more sections for you, and then I'll talk about the demo lesson. So personal questions that they might ask you. How do you handle criticism? So yeah, you can just speak on that. And then number 2, how do you deal with stress? For me, how do I deal with stress? I listen to a lot of music. It calms me down, and yeah, that's my go-to. Oh, I pray. That's my other go-to. So how would you, what would you do if there was a 3 to 5 minute change in a lesson? So you are about to go to class. This is how I'm understanding the question. You're about to head to class, and 3 to 5 minutes before your class, there's a lesson change. I mean, expect that, be open to that, be flexible. This job speaks highly on being flexible and dealing with changes suddenly. So be over prepared, have like have a lot of lessons. Luckily, when you do get here, there are plenty of groups for teachers that you can join in, whether you are in elementary, middle, or high school. There will be groups of teachers that will be willing to assist you. There's also tons of lessons in each grades for you, so just use that to start off with until you find your teaching style and what works for you, and then adapt it to your classes and your personality. And yeah, so if the lesson there was a change, just be flexible. Just try and work with what you got. And yeah, it hasn't happened to me, to be honest, so I don't have another answer for you. For me, my school is very good at letting me know beforehand. Like there's like, I can count the amount of times where I had a Korean surprise, which is what this question is. A Korean surprise is just like things changing very suddenly at the very last minute, and like at the very, very last minute. So I haven't had a lot of those. And it's never about like lessons, like so I don't really know how to answer this question for you. I'm so sorry. And then how would you build connections with a lot of students that you only see once a week? Outside of the classroom, see if there's like ways for you to connect with them outside of the classroom, like maybe during lunchtime. Find out what they like doing. So maybe in the class you ask them, well, what do you guys usually do during your lunch? And then maybe go and join a few of them doing that activity. Some of them will, maybe if you're in high school, they might be feeling like, teacher, you're cramping our style. We just wanna not talk in English right now. We just want to chill out. But I play volleyball with them. So one of my a few of my students actually told me about them playing volleyball, and they invited me to play volleyball with them, and then I did, and it was actually so much fun, just because I also just like volleyball and I like being active. So for me it was like a yes, I would join. So yeah, it's a way for you to talk to them. It's a way for you to build like that rapport with them outside of the classroom. And yeah, they really do enjoy it, because then they're like, teacher, volleyball, and I was like, yes, let's get it. Okay, yeah, I digress. And then we have, if a child is not interested in learning, what would you do? Try and make the lessons engaging, and just try and find out why the student might not be interested. Maybe there's like some other underlying issues. So just try and make it as fun, as interactive as possible. There's only so much you can do. If there's no willingness on the child's part, what can you really do? So, but on your end, try and do everything possible to make, to reach out to the student, to try and engage the student, to try and, maybe it's the lesson is too difficult for the student, try and simplify it using simpler terms, or maybe it's too easy, so they're not interested because it's too easy. Try and make it more challenging. So just try and figure out why the student might not be interested in English, and then yeah, try and find a solution as best as you can. And then last section, last category is other questions. So I don't know how many of these you might be asked, but I'm going to run through them quickly. So the first one is, are you currently employed? Yes or no? Elaborate. What have you been doing since you graduated? What qualities does an EFL teacher need? A lot of patience. Oh, a lot of patience. And I always exercise kindness in my classroom. I think that's just my personality. So I'm always kind and try and be understanding of everybody. And that goes a long way, I think. So for me, patience, kindness, openness. I can't think of others. What grade do Korean kids start learning English? Maybe 6, 5? I don't even know. 5, 6? 3? I would maybe 5 or 6. How many grades are in elementary, middle, and high school? I can tell you in high school there are 3. In middle school too, I think there are 3. First, second, and third. In elementary, I don't know. Maybe 4. Maybe it's third, fourth, fifth, sixth. Yeah, I think it's for elementary there's 4, for middle 3, for high school 3. I think. What kind of teaching style do you have, which is similar to your teaching philosophy? I've already touched on that. And then, is teaching in your future plans? What subject would I teach in the future? So teaching is not in my future plans, so it might be in yours. So what subjects do you plan on teaching in the future? Will you be able to handle questions about your heritage and ethnicity and origins all the time? Ooh, okay, that's an interesting question. I mean, you would definitely expect to be asked these questions, but yeah, I think they're more curious than anything. For me, I know a lot of people spoke about the students or the co-workers, especially if you're a person of color, touching your hair or pulling your hair. And for me, I haven't experienced that, or just like random strangers pulling or tugging your hair. I have not experienced that. The few times my students wanted to touch my hair, they would ask my permission first, and if they had any questions I would explain, but yeah, I don't get that a lot. What level do you prefer to teach and why? You should say high school. High school students are fun because you can actually communicate with them at a level that they understand. Sometimes it's not easy. High school students are not easy because when I was a teenager, I was not an easy teenager to deal with. In general, but in terms of like the school, I was very nice and polite to my teachers, but high school students are a joy, but you have to work on gaining their trust, and you have to work on gaining a relationship with them. I think in other levels it's a bit easier to build a relationship with them. In high school you have to work for it, but it's so meaningful and so rewarding once you do. It's just, I love teaching high schoolers. I was very afraid in the beginning, but I've really come around to them. And would you be comfortable living in a rural area? Part of the process, you have to be flexible and open-minded, so you gotta say yes. You have to say yes to this one. How will you teach a mixed ability classroom? Oh, that's a nice question too. That's a difficult question to answer. I think you have to find, you somehow have to base your lesson for the majority of the learners. So not a lot of learners will be lower level, not a lot of learners will be higher or advanced level. So you have to base your lessons for all the ones in the middle, and then just have a section where your lessons have like a difficulty level to it, so it's more engaging for the advanced students. And then also have like a simpler version, like a script and multiple choice, and for the lower level students. But you can't just try your best to include all learners, but I teach for the vast majority, so the middlers, like, and then I always go back and have like one-on-ones with the advanced students, and also try my best to help the lower level students. And yeah, that's just making sure that they understand. I go to the desk while we're doing like worksheets, just to make sure that they understand again, and just be like, okay. And then for the lower levels, and then for the higher levels, I just encourage them to think more about a question, or how can they answer it differently, and that usually works. And then lastly is the demo lesson. So your demo lesson will be based on your lesson plan during the interview, or it might not be based on your lesson plan. It might be similar topics around your lesson plan, so it might not be, but it might be similar topics. So prepare and practice going through your lesson plan, just so you know how everything is going to be structured. And yeah, so you start with using the PPP format or layout, the presentation, practice, and then production. Presentation is where you speak. Practice is where you allow students to work on their own, like a worksheet or something, and then marking the worksheet to make sure that they understand and giving them correct answers. And then production is maybe like a game where they reinforce what they learned in the class. Yeah, so use that formula when you set up your lesson plan. It will work for you. And then some tips. Number one is to practice beforehand, prepare beforehand. And this is not a demo lesson question, but it's just a tip that I've written down here. And when asked yes or no questions, always elaborate. Very important. And then research places in Korea and some history on Korean life. For your demo lessons, use a lot of TPR, so that's total physical responses. So when you are saying yes or no, 없어요, that's I don't have or I don't know in Korean. And then know your audience. If your demo lesson is for elementary students, maybe have a prop handy that would be useful. If it's for high school learners, speak slowly for all levels. So just enunciate, is that the right word? Enunciate a lot. And yeah, speak slow, a lot slower than you normally would. I still have trouble doing that. Use TPRs. Practice your lesson plan beforehand so you know what you are talking about. My lesson plan was on idioms for middle schoolers, and my interviewer liked the fact that I didn't make my lesson plan too easy, like apples and how many apples or something. So I used idioms, and yeah, so I would just, if I was doing a demo lesson, I would just pick one idiom and maybe try and explain it to them, like show them a piece of cake and then try and explain that test was a piece of cake, and then yeah, so the test was easy, something along those lines. I'm not doing a very good job at explaining that right now, but you get what I mean, I hope. If you don't, please let me know and I can elaborate via a text, because I can't exactly elaborate on it any further. But yes, this has been a long video. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. I hope that it was helpful and you will ace the test, because apparently the interview process is very rigorous now. It was very easy in 2019 for me. Yeah, and I also had a lot of preparation help with preparing for my interview. So I wish you all the best. Please feel free to reach out if you need any help with your interview, or you just need a little bit more clarity. I would be happy to help. Thank you again for watching my video. I'll see you in the next one, I hope. I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.